Welcome to PowerTalk. I'm your host, Tom Power. And boy, do we have an exciting one today. With me, I have the man in the red suit, Mr. Bruce Templeton, Santa's assistant since 1978. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here, Tom.
Glad to have you. Um, so you've been Santa's assistant since 1978. How did you get started with that?
Well, in a previous career, I left Newfoundland and I opened 96 retail stores across the country. And then it was 1977 that my wife and I said, let's go home. So we came back to St. John's. And then Aunt Anna Templeton, there's a building named after her on Water Street. She was the director of crafts for the province. And she asked if I would play Santa at St. Andrew's Church. Now, Miss Anna Templeton was not a lady that you said no to. However, I went off to Canadian Tire and a bunch of places, and I came back and said, Aunt Anna, the answer is no. And when she said why, I said, because I have an image of what I believe this should be, and I can't find it. So Aunt Anna said, well, if I make it, will you do it? So then we had velvet, and we had lamb's wool, and we had yak hair and prescription glasses and white gauntlets from the RCMP. And I mean, it was incredibly authentic. So that was the beginning of my adventure, playing Santa. I played a role. I was an actor, and I enjoyed playing Santa. So that was the beginning in 1978.
And so from playing Santa, when did you become Santa's assistant?
Well, as I went along through this, as you become so comfortable that you can go into an event, you lie down on the floor, which I always do. My police screening is done every year if organizations want a copy of my RNC screening. So I go in and I lie down on the floor. And kids come and climb all over, and Santa gives them a ride on his back. And then I'll say to the children, take off my hat. And they pull off Santa's hat. And so you get to the point that you're absolutely bulletproof. I mean, there's no way the kids can hurt you. And they're very respectful anyway. I've never been challenged by a child. I have been in sort of neat ways. But you become Santa's assistant when you stop playing Santa and you start being Santa. But there's some interesting things that come with that. One of the visits once was a young lady came and gave Santa a little baby, and the little baby had marks all over its face. And I said to a social worker, does the baby have measles? And the social worker said, no, Santa, that's OxyContin. The mother's a drug addict and she's breastfeeding her baby. So you have these moments where you really get jolted. Or when a child says, Mommy says there's no money for milk and cookies, do you only go to the houses where there's milk and cookies? So every year there's a child that Santa will visit, and Santa never forgets the child. And with the Janeway visits and the visits to pediatric intensive care, you become very close to some of the families over the years.
Yeah. And I saw a video of you on YouTube. You talked about a visit you had to the John Howard Society and this young boy that you met, and you went back and he wasn't there. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, first of all, I believe that a child doesn't get to choose the family into which it's born. You didn't have anything to say about that. John Howard is an organization that Santa has visited for a long time and will visit again this year. So we went to one event where the same little guy used to meet Santa at the door. He'd latch on to Santa's leg and say, I'm your assistant, Santa. And then one year when I went, probably 5th or 6th or 7th year, and this little guy now would have been, I'm going to say 13 or 14 years old. He wasn't there. So I asked the organizers where where's my little friend? And they said, you'll read about it in the paper tomorrow, Santa. So I thought, uh-oh. So the next day I opened the telegram, page 3, 13-year-old steals an ambulance from the Janeway, and I thought, oh no. So I called I called the RNC. I said, you've arrested a child? And they said, yes, we have. I said, can you tell me where he is? And they said, nope. So I called Child, Youth, and Family Services, and they said, nope, he's a minor. We can't tell you where he is. I called John Howard back, and I said, we have to find the little boy. Where is he? So happily, I got a call from the Paradise Youth Treatment Center to say, Santa, if you come tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, you can find your little friend. So Santa went through all the security out there and rang the bells. Ho, 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 ho. And a little head poked his head around the corner, and he ran the whole length of the floor, and he jumped and he cried in Santa's shoulder, you found me, you found me, you found me. I was so afraid you wouldn't find me. So I followed that little guy over the years. We arranged for him to go to hockey school. We arranged goalie pads and all that stuff for him. And I figure one of these days, he may wind up being the Prime Minister of Canada. I don't know. But he's a great little guy, and Santa enjoys all his visits to children everywhere.
Well, that's great. That's such a touching story. You've had over hundreds of visits over the past 40 years, and I know that's probably one of your most memorable. There's also, you do this thing, the flight to the North Pole. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Well, behind me there, you can see the image of the plane landing in the North Pole. So the flight to the North Pole, we've done it for 15 years. We'll do it again in a couple of Saturdays' time. It's done in conjunction with the radio station, with the FM division of VOCM, or Steel Communications, or Stingray it is now. So they start out and they say to a child, they send a question in you'd like to ask Santa. So 6,000 kids send in a question. And every morning, starting early in December, they phone a child at 7:45 in the morning and say, you have been selected to go on the flight to the North Pole. So it is absolutely gorgeous. The children go very early. They're at 6:30 in the morning. They're all met at Provincial Airlines. They're all given a boarding pass. They go through security and they get on the plane. The plane takes off. And about 20 minutes later, it lands in the North Pole. Santa gets on the plane. So we have a little flight manifest, and we know that Tom is in row 2A, and the question he wants to ask Santa is, do your feet smell as bad as Uncle Billy's when you take off your boots? But some of the questions, the questions are actually sent to the North Pole and the flight manifest, where all of the seats are all laid out. And Mrs. Claus sits with me the night before, and she helps me figure out how these questions are going to be answered, because they're not all that simple, and Santa can't lie. So, for example, I'll give you 2 examples. One is, Mommy died in a car accident in October. Will her spirit be with you in the sleigh? Another awfully tough one was, what did I do wrong that caused my daddy to die? And a third one was when a little girl had a piece of parchment paper all rolled up, and she had written a letter, and she said, Santa, read this tonight and phone me. So that night we phoned the little girl. Her letter said, Dear Santa, my name is Emily. My puppy dog died of cancer. But my mommy says if I am really good, you will bring my puppy back to life, and I will find my puppy alive under the tree on Christmas morning. I love you, Santa. Please don't let me down. So that was an interesting challenge. That night, after Santa spoke to Mrs. Claus, as he always does, we got Emily on the phone and said, Emily, we just looked outside the big window here in the North Pole, and your puppy dog is outside. He's playing tag with Dasher and Dancer and Comet. And you would make our Christmas very special if you let your puppy stay here with us. And we promise we will look after your puppy forever. And the little Emily said, "Thank you, Santa. That's all I needed to know for Christmas. I love you and Mrs. Claus. Mommy and I will go to the pound after Christmas and get another puppy."
Wow. That's, yeah, very touching. Um, you've written 4 books. Your bestseller is The Man in the Red Suit.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
It came about because first, I guess I'm while my friend Santa might be ageless, um, I am 78 now, and I got to the point that some of these experiences that I was having were things that I wanted to share. So, and I would urge anybody, whoever decides they'd like to write a book, I urge you to write the manuscript. Don't be afraid of rejection. You will be turned down. So I wrote the chapters. I was very fortunate. I found a publisher who said to me, "You've written a lump of coal. It will take us a long time to polish this into something that we can market." As a matter of fact, it was humbling. They said, "You're a good storyteller. We have no question about your ability to market the book. You're just a lousy writer, that's all." So so at any rate, The Man in the Red Suit was the first book that came out in 2012. It made the bestseller list of the Globe and Mail. It got to be number 2, and the only book ahead of me was 50 Shades of Grey. So the topics were quite different. So when I wrote the second book, I went in and I said, how do you feel about 50 Shades of Red?" And the publisher said, "No, that's not going to be the title."
Yeah, it's pretty good when you're right behind 50 Shades of Grey. Uh,
I
so,
am all the excuse me, all the money from the books. I've been very fortunate that all of this for me has always been a hobby. When I go to the U.S. and I do it, I'm an instructor now at Santa schools in the U.S. And for many of my colleagues there, this is a business, and that's okay. I'm not a critical of that. I'm fortunately for me, it has never been anything that I had a very successful career as an investment advisor. I started a business here with my son, which he now owns. So any revenue that I've received has always been written out to Rotary International. It goes to Rotary in Chicago, and there it is double matched. So I send $1, and the Gates Foundation adds $2. So now there's $3 on the table. It costs 60 cents to buy polio vaccine for a child. And over the years now, we bought vaccine for 600,000 children. So that's where the money has gone from the books.
and that's also from any revenue you get from your visits too, I guess, is it?
It's any this year I'll receive. Excuse me. I don't charge for any. I've never charged for a Santa visit, and I don't earn any money from this at all. So the Santa visits, the corporations will make out checks to Rotary, and that it'll come to $2,000 or $2,500 this year. But that's not why I do the things that I do. I don't mind the corporate visits. My visiting very sick children, the cancer unit of the health science, the Bliss Murphy, to go in there when a child is receiving 30 radiation treatments. Those are the visits that are very, very rewarding. There were one visit to a little girl in Clark's Beach 2 years ago. She wasn't expected to live until Christmas. She did. And in the fourth book that I wrote about a visit to a child in pediatric intensive care, expected to die, where the mothers put a pair of white angel wings on the baby's back and said, "Would you kiss my daughter on the back of the head to start her on her journey?" Now, I always carry the prayer of St. Nicholas with me. And we prayed the prayer of St. Nicholas. We prayed for freedom from pain, and we prayed for peace for the child and the family. And 2 days later, I got a call to say, "Would you come? There's a letter here." So when I went, the picture was there of Santa with this little baby, this little infant. But the letter from the mother said, "You'll see we have left. We have gone home. My daughter started to get better the minute you said the prayer for my baby. We have gone home for Christmas. We love you, Santa." So that little girl lived to be, I think I went to her funeral when she was 5. So I am with many of these kids for quite a number of years after we've had a visit with them at a critical time in their lives. There was even a little boy down in the old Janeway that I remember. He was down there for a fair length of time. His name was Tom.
Yeah. So, and you are the only living Santa in the International Santa Claus Hall of Fame. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got on a red blazer here, which is the only one in Canada. But that was a big surprise more than anything. There are 24 Santas in the International Santa Claus Hall of Fame. They add 1 or 2 every year. Some of them are very, not me, but some of them are very notable. If you see the old black and white movie this Christmas, A Miracle on 34th Street, you'll see Edmund Gwynn, the British actor. He is one of the founding Santas in the Santa Claus Hall of Fame. Mickey Rooney is in the Santa Claus Hall of Fame. So when I got the call one night from the organization to say, Santa Bruce, you're to be inducted into the Santa Claus Hall of Fame. Would you come to New York for that? I did. And since then, I've also been inducted into something called the Knights of St. Nicholas. And that really is a code of behavior which can, and it's a very high bar when you're a Knight of St. Nicholas.
Yeah. Actually, I think I've heard of the Knights of St. Nicholas some time ago, and I was always wondering what it was. So
Let me share this with you, which changed my behavior. And the people watching this might be a little surprised, but I 21 years ago on December the 21st, 4 days before Christmas, 20 years ago, I was stopped by the RNC on Logie Bay Road, asked to blow into a breathalyzer, which I did. And they said, "You're not impaired, sir, but almost." And that gave me an awful fright. I thought about that. So I thought about what would happen the next day if people opened the newspaper and they saw Bruce Templeton charged with impaired driving. I still had another 20 Santa visits to go. I had been Santa for I don't know what. As I said, this was 2002. I started my Santa visits in 78. At any rate, it hit me so hard that I listened to a program about addictions, alcohol, drug abuse, and the answer to any addiction is FSYLM. Find something you love more. And as I thought about my wife and kids and my reputation in the community, Rotary, I decided that I would never have a drink again as long as I live. So at that point in my life, and when I speak about this at the Santa conventions, I've had 5 and 6 men come up to me in tears and say that I have finally given them the path, it's just an interesting part of my life, that very personal part, but one that I enjoy.
There's one quote that I know you sent me the other day. It says, "In the end, it is your presence, not the presents, that count." Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, I think where it came from originally was when a child said to me, I said to a child, "What would you like for Christmas?" And she said, "Ask my mommy to give me her presents." And I expected PRESENTS, but that's not what she meant at all. Ask. So I've thought a lot about this. So the question is, if those watching this and listening, think back to your own Christmases, and what is it that you remember? Is it something you got under a tree? Is it a pair of skates, a toboggan? As a matter of fact, can you remember anything at all that you got physically as a gift? And most people, most families will say it was skating, it was making a snowman with Grampy, it was making cookies with Granny. It was, so I believe that you get one chance to make a memory for a child. So I think at Christmas time, we're all bustling around like crazy. Um, and the contrast that hit me really hard was actually in Chancellor Park, where Santa went into one room and there was it bright and cheery, and the lady with her walker, she was dressed in red, Christmas lights, family pictures, Rudolph on the wall. She offered me a glass of sherry. But at any rate, that was a beautiful visit to a lady from a very caring family. And then you go into the very next room, dark and morose and gray, no pictures of anything on the wall, and a little wizened soul. And she said, "Go away, Santa Claus. Why do they treat me like a child in here? Santa is for children." And I got down on my knees in front of her and I said, "Ma'am, is there one thing you'd like for Christmas?" And she said, "Yes, Santa, please tell my children where I am. Please tell them that I love them and that I think about them every day." So while we're all scurrying around trying to figure out how, in a very tough year about gifts and all that stuff, just be present in someone's life. Go and see them. And whether you take a big cardboard box, I went down the other day for a little grandchild here who came to us. I went to a local warehouse, a furniture warehouse, came home with a huge big box for free, and I carved a door and a window in it, and out of the pieces I made a little table to go inside, and this little 18-month-old climbed inside with her flashlight. I mean, you'd think I'd given her the castle. The box was free from the furniture store. So it's all about your presence. Make cookies. If you get flour on the floor, who cares, right? Just make memories for your children and your grandchildren, and don't forget your elderly friends and parents. And do an act of kindness for somebody else. That's all I urge people to do at Christmas.
That's the main thing is, like you said, just your presence. Be present in the moment.
Put your mind where your body is and go and be present with your friends.
Exactly. One thing about that is, what is your favorite memory of Christmas? Like whether it was growing up or recently.
Oh, probably skating on Bannerman Park. The memories that I have now are there's one little boy who lives in Flat Rock. I went to his birthday party the other day. He's 11. So Santa went into the Janeway and met this sweet little guy, and his mother's name is Alice. And then Santa went back the next year, back in Christmas Eve, 9 o'clock, 9:30. And you go into the room and there's this little boy. And Santa went over and said, "Hey, you're still here. You're back." And the mother said, "No, Santa, we've never left." So there's a child and she's written a couple of chapters in the books. But she says he makes the not so normal seem normal again, if only for a few minutes. So if Santa can go into the room and make the not so normal seem normal again, if only for a few minutes, then that describes what I do, why I do, and that is the most memorable memory that I have of Christmas.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Bruce, for joining us, Santa Bruce. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'm sure everybody will enjoy this and enjoy knowing more about you and your journey as Santa's assistant. And again, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, I'll tell Santa, Tom, that you're on the good list. And I do hope that you get everything for Christmas that you and would like to and receive, but give as well. Merry Christmas.
Exactly. Merry Christmas. And thank you everybody for watching. Please smash that like button and subscribe and click on the notification bell to get more content from PowerTalk. Have a good day and be happy.